Okay, so to turn this on, let's assume that everything is started from complete power off. The laser is currently plugged into the white power strip back there, and the back knob is always in the on position. So in order to connect the laser to the laptop, they both need to start from the off state and then turn on together. If either of them turns off, they will never connect again until they're both off again. Once you've applied the main power to the laser from the power switch in the back, you're going to turn this key from off to on, and you're going to notice that only the green light turns on. In order to get this ready to fire and actually be able to connect with the machine, you have to press restart. Every time you turn this on, you need to turn the key on and then hit reset one time, and then the emission light will go on and you should be ready to connect. If you can't connect, you probably need to turn everything off and on again, but that is standard. You'll need to do that every time. We have turned the laser on, we've turned the laptop on, they're communicating, and now next we're going to turn this on. So there are 4 switches here: off, on, idle, run, 0.5 gram, 1 gram, and stop, start. So we're going to turn it on. And you always want to give it 10 to 15 seconds to boot up before you start pressing other switches. And you'll also notice on the top here you have e-stop. This is your oh crap button. If you hear motors, you know, making weird sounds or something needs to stop, you're gonna hit that button, and then after every e-stop, you're gonna have to turn the entire machine off and on again, and then wait for those 15 seconds because it won't do anything ever again until it gets completely power cycled. So that's how you turn it off and on. This is ready to run now. So let's show you how to load up some cartridges and do our first engraving batch. Let's say you already have your design ready to go and all you want to do is run. I'm telling you this before I tell you how to do the design stuff yet and the calibration, simply because we need to do this to prepare to calibrate the laser positioning. So it's all ready to go. You're gonna select the length of cartridge. 1 milligram is long, 0.5 is short. So we have it selected to 1 gram on the bottom left here. And then we're gonna flip the run switch to run. Now we're gonna come over to the cart dump and put these in the conveyor belt. Alright, I'm going to hit the e-stop right here. Once the cart is in position, we've hit e-stop, and we are going to find the position of the laser coordinates in the software to hit exactly where we want to hit. Okay, so after playing around with it a little bit, I have found a good position for it, and I'll go up to outline all, and then we'll do a start marking operation. Okay, so we have a good position with the laser outline right on the band of the cartridge, and we're going to call that good to go. Okay, now that we have paused it and hit the e-stop in order to get the positioning correct, we have to power cycle the entire system because the process has been interrupted, and that's the way to properly restart it. Now, when you make sure that when you turn the system off and then on again, you return it from run to idle. If the system starts in run, you're going to have a bad time. Okay, in order to clear this cartridge out, we're going to switch from idle to run, and the first thing it does every time it goes from idle to run is it clears all cartridges out of the grippers and possible locations that cartridges could have been left in the previous cycle. Now, it's really important to never touch the motors and the assemblies to try and relieve them of cartridges. Just do an off-on idle run cycle to let it clear itself out, because if you move stuff around, you can change the calibration, and we'll have to have a professional come and recalibrate the machine. we'll just begin running again. Occasionally, it misidentifies the orientation of a cartridge, and it will dump it into an overflow bin, which you'll have to empty out every once in a while. So what we just saw is a marking, and it's going into the outshoot, which is on the left side of the machine. Remember, always wear your eyewear while using this thing. And if there are people in the room without the eyewear, close the door and then have them put eyewear on before looking in this slot. Okay, now to just briefly explain how our system is interacting with the laser. What's happening is every time you put it in a run, it is just blindly putting cartridges into the gripper mechanism, the rotary motor, and then telling the laser to fire. It will then wait for the laser to say it's done firing before taking the cartridge out and putting it in the out bin. Now, in essence, what the telling the laser to fire command is doing is it is pressing this top left button in the software up here, the start marking button. That's really all it's doing. So you got to be ready for what's going to happen when you go from idle to run. Is it's going to press that top left button every single time there's a cartridge in the grippers. So if you want to just run it and you don't want to fully engrave stuff and commit, what you can do is change the method of the marking. So if you do outline each instead of trace off, what's going to happen is it's going to use the red dot laser sight instead of the full-blown laser engraving. That way you can get kind of comfortable with it. There you go. You saw that flash. There you go. Didn't have to fully commit to marking cartridges. You can play with stuff, make sure everything's oriented, and have the machine run its course. Now, as I may have mentioned before, there is an overflow bin right here, which will need to periodically be emptied, and you can just remove it from the right side. There's some bolts to kind of hold it in. And these are carts that were incorrectly identified in their orientation by the second subsystem. The subsystem is not perfect yet and occasionally misidentifies them, puts them out the wrong way, and then they get dumped into this cart, this bucket rather, instead of getting sent to the machine and engraved the wrong direction. So you can just put those back into the top of the machine, and then remember to put this back in place so that they don't just accumulate on top of the bed and cause potential issues. Now, occasionally, carts may get a little stuck in the outshoot. We're already working on a solution for that, but in the meantime, the next cart should knock it out. And if you want to dislodge it without going into the machine and disrupting operation, you can come around the side here, kind of knock this around. It usually dislodges it, so don't need to be too hard, but just enough force to dislodge it should be perfectly fine for the machine. If it ever loosens this up, you can come in here and tighten that. This is not a subsystem that requires extreme precision. This is, and this is, but this does not require extreme precision. So, feel free to knock it around, adjust it a teeny bit. Try not to touch this screw and change the rotation angle of it. But other than that, you are pretty much fine. You can also change this vacuum duct location if you need to. That's totally fine. The LED system is controlled by this wireless LED controller. They are addressable LEDs, so fun effects are possible, but we basically just have it on white light mode right now. If you would like to connect to it, instructions are right here. Now, it's important to note that if you set it too bright, these LEDs will go into kind of a weird flickery mode and then overdraw. So dim is best right now. We have sort of a wimpy little power converter here, which is getting a little hotter than I'd like. So for now, we're trying to keep them dim, and we'll upgrade that soon. Now, one of the final things to note is that if it's been running for a while, it will turn off without detecting any cartridges. It will automatically turn off the elevator and kind of not constantly running. If that happens, you can restart it by pressing or getting your hand near this, the base of this sensor. It'll turn red and then it'll always start. So after a cycle has run and everything has gone through, this first sensor right here is going to show that there's nothing there. It's currently programmed in a way that once a batch is done, you're going to have to power cycle it, turn it off, turn it on, wait 10 seconds. Super easy before you start a new batch. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything to switch to run. So be aware of that. We started a batch with a couple in the front and then nothing, and then we loaded the conveyor. So it did those two and then waited for a little while and went, okay, batch must be done, shut it down, and now it won't start again. So be aware of that. If you're going from idle to run and it doesn't do anything, pretty much in any circumstance, just power cycle it, turn it on, make sure you're in idle, wait 5-10 seconds or so. Give it a start. It's also important to remember that when you power cycle a machine because it's done, you don't need to worry about changing anything in your software. Your software is ready to go. All it's doing is getting commands from the PLC whenever the PLC is on and ready and in a state to do it. So you need to power cycle this to do a new batch. You don't need to turn the laser off. You don't need to turn the laptop off. Those can stay on. You just need to power cycle this. It's a 20-second process. Okay, a few last words on use and considerations with this machine. First is turn it all down at the end of the night. This laser is a lot of money and it's going to stay on until you turn the white power strip off at the end of the night. We can make it nicer and have a button that does it eventually, but for now, power strip off at the end of the night. Reach down there, turn it off. Turn all this off, make sure your laptop's off. Just make everything last longer. Two is, this is a pretty high power laser. Put some signage on the door that says laser zone, do not enter without eyewear, or knock first maybe. Three is, it's a laser. Have a fire extinguisher in here. I would highly advise that. And other than that, this machine is prototype. We are working out bugs as they come up, so have a log. Whenever you run into something that confuses you, you don't understand, is clearly malfunctioning, write it down, record it in the moment, and then we'll go over them weekly or bi-weekly and either set the record straight on possible user error or develop a plan to fix it so that the problem doesn't happen again. Other than that, have fun with the lasers.